Welcome to another topic about embracing your spiritual path. And what I'd like to discuss now for the next 9.5 minutes is about surrendering your heart and understanding what surrender means. Surrender is not about giving away your life or control of your life to some unknown stranger. Surrender is an important and an essential ingredient for you to embrace the divine. You need to surrender your heart so as to reactivate your DNA within your soul. And the Essenes knew this because it took 7 years for them to become fully initiated as a full member of the Essenic family. And they worked on reprogramming the mind to become overruled by the heart. Their philosophy extended through the whole world, and they lived not in fear, but they were a threat to the great civilizations of Rome and Greece, because they wanted what they had without surrendering their own worldly materialistic values in a hedonistic society. And today, light workers who call themselves light workers are supposed to be bearers of light, and yet many are not, because they have not surrendered their heart to the light. Yes, they may wear the designer label garments. Yes, they may speak with such great profundity and academia, but they're not letting the light of the divine shine through them. They are not touching hearts because they're more focused or preoccupied by ego and what people think of them. So to embrace the one who is the I Am Presence, one has to take heart the words of the great Teresa of Avila. And in her wonderful book, The Interior Castle, she invites us to enter the sacred castle, our sacred space, to embrace the divine, by first going across the drawbridge and then pulling up that drawbridge so that no one can dissuade us from entering the presence of the one who is. And in the first room, we kneel before the God, the Creator, Mother God, Father God, who called us by our name to surrender our heart to truth. So the word surrender isn't about reneging one's responsibilities, but rather honoring responsibility and giving glory to the one who is. It's about activating the DNA within our soul that we brought into this incarnation from before we were born. And yet many people today are preoccupied by image, or their lives are governed by fear, and they don't sense the happiness that they can achieve in that surrender of self. Surrender is about letting go of the control and the expectations that we have or others have of us. It's about honoring the heart, which is connected with the higher self. The heart is the sacred heart, and that heart is inspired by the divine one within us to embrace the mystical heart of God. And we can do that when we willingly and knowingly come into the presence of the I Am Presence and surrender who we are. That's not failure, or a modern word would be cop-out. No, it's taking responsibility so that we can live and embrace the divine oneness and allow their light shine through us as vehicles of love. But we cannot be used as a vehicle of love, calling ourselves a light worker or bringer of peace, if we're coming to God from our head. The ego is a place that has no place or time in that servanthood of heart to heart. And yet many light workers use the ego to process the message of God to their heart. And I would truthfully say, from my own life experiences, from my peaks and troughs, from the many times I've fallen by the wayside, that when we go into our head and ask, what is the message of God saying to me in my heart, we have lost it. And I truly do believe that the Antichrist isn't out there. The Antichrist is within us. And it's the Antichrist who stops us from reclaiming that oneness with God. And it is the Antichrist who has become the God of paper today in so many people's lives. In your career path, you've probably come across targets. Well, as a nurse in palliative care 12 years ago, before I took ill health retirement, I was governed by targets. And those targets are generated through a God of fear. And I call that a God of paper. It's the new God on the block. And his disciples are targets. And they cause entrapment, leaving one in fear. And you only have to ask any professional person today, how do they view their role in society and in their career? And not many will say, I have found completeness. What they found is sadness and a great disrespect and lack of trust. But coming back to the word surrender, if your heart is aching to embrace that spiritual oneness, then trust me, you will find happiness only when you've surrendered the control of your destiny to the God who formed you in your mother's womb, to the Spirit of God who lives within you in your sacred temple of light. And those who call themselves light workers, who are not centered in that sacred heart, embracing the mystical heart of God, then they will be crucified this year. They will be stripped like the layers of an onion until they come into that safe place where they will know intuitively that they have to surrender. And if they choose not to, God will still love them. But there's no use crying over spilt milk, because many know what to do, but they've chosen not to go there. There's a sense of stubbornness. It's like a cancer eating away at their heart, and it has alienated them from truth. Better to honor who you are and safeguard your heart in the presence of God than to risk losing your soul. Yes, we live in difficult times, challenging times, but wonderful times, because Old Testament philosophies and prophecies are becoming a reality each day. So rather than see something as being a challenge, see it as a blessing. A blessing, because there's an old saying, man's disappointment today is God's appointment for your tomorrow. Let go and let God be. Bless you, and may God reward you, and may His love inspire you to surrender your dreams